You've seen the movies, right? The Conjuring? Then you definitely know Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're painted as America's most famous paranormal investigators. This loving, super devout couple fighting demons to save innocent families. And, it's a great story. It's good versus evil. But behind all that Hollywood gloss, behind a brand they built so carefully, there's a much darker, much more complicated story. And this one has absolutely nothing to do with ghosts.
So that's the big question we're really digging into here. Were the Warrens the real deal? Were they these selfless soldiers in a holy war? Or were they just brilliant manipulators, running a hugely profitable business that was built on fear, on stories, and on secrets they would do literally anything to protect? All right, let's get into it. Okay, first you gotta understand the brand, because the brand was everything. The Warrens we see on the big screen, they're legends. They are the people you call when things get really bad. They've got the creepy museum full of forbidden artifacts in their basement. They have this deep, almost ancient knowledge of the occult. And, of course, that supposed direct line to the Vatican. And that right there, that's their public persona in a nutshell. They weren't just ghost hunters. No, they were demonologists. They were presented as the last line of defense for a family under some kind of supernatural attack. This is the image that made them famous all over the world, and incredibly rich. But the foundation of that image has some pretty serious cracks, and they all seem to start with their most famous case. Yeah, it all kicks off with the house that absolutely terrified a generation, the Amityville Horror. I mean, for most people, it was the scariest haunted house story ever told. But here's the thing, even back then, inside the paranormal community itself, there were a lot of whispers. Whispers that something was very, very wrong with the official story. Now let's be crystal clear about something. The horrible DeFeo murders that happened in that house, 100% real, a terrible, real-life tragedy. But the ghost story that supposedly came after, the bleeding walls, the demonic pigs, all the stuff the Lutz family told the world, well, that story was eventually exposed as a complete, total fake. And get this, the confession didn't come from some skeptic or a rival trying to tear them down. Nope. It came straight from the lawyer for the murderer himself, Ronald DeFeo Jr. The lawyer, a guy named William Weber, admitted that he and the Lutz family literally invented the entire ghost story over a bottle of wine. And why? For one reason, to get a huge book and movie deal. And when you look at how the con was made, it was almost ridiculously simple. It wasn't some grand illusion. They just took totally normal household stuff and twisted it. A plate of spaghetti gets spilled in the kitchen. Well, that becomes evil green slime mysteriously oozing out of the walls. Then, to sell it, to make it all seem legit, they brought in Ed and Lorraine Warren. Their whole job was to come in and confirm that it was all real. And the Warrens delivered, all right? They even added their own fictional chapters to the story. Ed dramatically claimed the house was built on a Shinnecock Indian burial ground, haunted by angry spirits. The problem with that? The local Montaukett tribe, the actual experts on the area's history, they confirmed there's absolutely no record of any burial ground there. None. It was just made up. And that famous photo of the ghost boy on the stairs? It's now widely believed to be just one of the investigators, a living, breathing guy kneeling down. Okay, so the Amityville hoax was a huge hit to their credibility, for anyone who is really paying attention. But the most disturbing allegations against the Warrens, they have nothing to do with ghosts at all. They come from a woman who is deep inside their inner circle for decades, a woman who lived with them, who worked for them, and who held their darkest secret. Her name is Judith Penney. So the public, Judith was just, the girl who helped run the Warrens' infamous occult museum. But her real story is so much more sinister. She says she was groomed by Ed Warren, a relationship that apparently began when he was a delivery driver at her high school. Not long after that, she actually moved in with the couple. Judith was only 15 years old when she alleges she began a secret affair with Ed, who was 37. She claims Ed would alternate nights, spending one night with his wife Lorraine in their house and the next night with her in an apartment they had built for her right above their own. This whole situation got so obvious that in 1963, the police got a tip and they arrested Judith. Now get this. Because of the bizarre, messed up laws back then, it was the teenage girl who got arrested and thrown in jail, not the married adult man she was living with. According to Judith, Lorraine knew everything about the affair from the very beginning and just looked the other way. But that look the other way attitude apparently shattered in 1978. So why then? Well, because 1978 was the absolute peak of their Amityville fame. The brand was everything. Their image as a devout Catholic couple, that was their entire business. And that's exactly when Judith found out she was pregnant with Ed's child, a secret that could have brought their whole empire crashing down.
This is Judith's account of what she says happened next. She claims that Lorraine, terrified of a scandal, forced her to get an abortion to protect the family's public image. According to Judith, they even came up with a cover story that she'd been raped by an intruder, but she refused to do it. In the end, she says she felt like she had no other choice but to terminate the pregnancy. So here's the really crucial part. What happened to Judith wasn't just some private family tragedy. It was a business decision. It shows how this was never just about investigating ghosts. It was about building and protecting a brand, a very, very profitable brand. And as their fame exploded, especially with the movies, they went to some pretty extreme lengths to make sure their secrets stayed buried. This really just lays it all out, doesn't it? On one side, you've got the public brand, the devout, selfless Catholic saviors. And on the other, you have the reality alleged by people who were closest to them, a world driven by money, by secret affairs, and by some pretty incredible legal gymnastics to keep it all quiet. And, their legal contracts, they tell a story all on their own. When Lorraine signed on as a consultant for the Conjuring movies, her lawyers made sure that the contract included some highly specific and really unusual clauses. The filmmakers were legally forbidden from showing the Warrens committing any crimes, having affairs, or, and this is the most telling one, depicting any kind of sex with minors.
And in case you're thinking, oh, that's just normal movie stuff, well, it's really not. A talent attorney who actually looked at the contract for The Hollywood Reporter said point blank that these kinds of protective clauses are not common at all. It was basically a legal firewall built to protect their legacy and their secrets forever.
So for all the talk about God and demons, for all the crosses they held up and all the televised prayers, Judith Penney had a very different idea of what really motivated Lorraine Warren. In her eyes, the driving force behind the whole operation, it wasn't faith, it wasn't about saving souls, it was about money.
And all of this kind of leaves us with one last thought. After you peel back all the layers of the Hollywood myth, the debunked cases, and the really disturbing personal secrets, you just have to ask yourself, what's the real horror story here? Is it the demons in the dark that we can't see? Or is it the darkness that can exist inside people, hidden right out in the open? What haunts us more?